We like to dive into the strange, fascinating and often unexplored aspects of the world around us. For years humans have depended on water for their survival, so much so that in the early days of our existence, we could not survive unless we built our civilizations near lakes, rivers, streams or other bodies of water. In recent years though, divers have detailed their strange experiences while being in some of the most uncharted places on our planet. One person posted the following story to social media. He said the following: I worked with a guy who used to be a deep sea welder. He also worked on various things in the ocean such as rigs, which would require him to dive deep beneath the ocean. We got talking one day as we shared a lot of things in common, as I used to do a bit of diving myself, and he told me about some of the strange things he witnessed while carrying out jobs. Due to the years of experience he had, he told me he could easily identify wildlife, and said he would often encounter things like deep sea fish, sharks, along with various squid species. He told me that saturation diving pays well, but it's a job that carries its risks, and that this encounter made him think twice about re-entering the water. He said that on this one occasion he and a team was called out to a big job, which saw him and the team assembling and maintaining an oil rig and pipelines. While he was down there, each of the team had their positions. He detailed that the visibility wasn't great, and that it was overall a difficult job to carry out. He said that on day 5 of the job he got into position and started working, but after around 20 minutes, he kept on feeling something heavy touch his back. At first he thought it might have been another team member, but when he turned around there was no one there. His second thought was that it could have been a school of fish, going on to say that these structures are somewhat of an attractor for smaller species, as they act like protection for them. When it happened a few minutes later, he said he was able to get a glimpse of this thing, and said the only way he could describe it is that it looked like some type of squid. He detailed that the organism put him into a sort of trance, saying that it did this by changing shape and colour. He said that he'd never experienced anything like it before, as he was still awake and knew what was going on, but couldn't move a muscle. The reason that he said the organism was like a squid is because this is the only animal that he was aware of that had this type of ability, although he said that he'd never encountered anything that looked like this creature, and that had its abilities. He said that he's never gotten over the fact that this creature was able to paralyze him without touching him. When I asked whether anyone else had seen all of this unfold, he told me that he was behind a large piece of equipment that obstructed his view, saying that all of the other members of the diving team were working on areas of the rig that were out of view, so although the team was within the area, none of them saw each other. He also said that these structures are massive, and even if they were working close to each other, the visibility in the region that they were in wasn't great. He continued saying that once the creature approached him, getting within 10 feet, he said that it slowed down its coloration and stopped moving its body into different shapes, and once it did this he started to regain movements in his arms and legs. After the creature swam off, he said he had an incredibly painful headache and felt very dizzy. On the day of the encounter he said that everything was fine before he entered the water. He didn't complain of having a headache. He didn't have a drink or anything in his system that would compromise him, so he was sure about what he'd witnessed. When I questioned him on the size of the creature, he said that it was difficult to say. The only thing he said was that it was much bigger than him. He was certain that it wasn't a common squid species that he'd encountered before, saying that normally the areas where he worked had much smaller species, and that they didn't have the abilities that this creature had. He said he tried to research what this thing was, but every time he did he came up empty, being unable to find an organism that matched this one. He said I was the only person he told the story to, and that he was certain that if he told anyone they would judge him. He did admit that he got scared when he went back into the water, as this organism possessed the ability to control him, and it was something that really shocked him. Even though the encounter only lasted a minute or so, it was something that he didn't want to relive. He said the headache lasted around a week, and it was easily the worst headache he'd ever had before. After this experience, he said he never encountered the creature again, and that as of today he has no idea what it was he encountered. Since 2019, the Warren Occult Museum where the Annabelle doll has been kept has been closed, and it's led many to ask, what's going to happen to the doll along with the many items that have called this place home? The famous ghost hunting couple Ed and Lorraine Warren opened the museum as a place to house these objects. They were a pair of prominent American paranormal investigators who were well known for investigating a variety of high-profile cases. A married couple, the two were among the first investigators of the Amityville haunting, and their notoriety increased as they worked on other notable cases. Throughout the course of their lives, the Warrens claimed to have investigated over 10,000 cases of supposed activity, and their work has inspired a number of horror movies, including those in the Conjuring universe. Since their passing, the Warrens' son-in-law Tony Spear has taken the reins, and it's said that he's now in charge and is keeping a close eye on these objects. But people have questions, including what's going to happen to Annabelle, when's the museum going to open again, and what will happen to all of the other haunted objects. A few years back there was a story that went around social media detailing that Annabelle had somehow escaped, but Tony put these stories to rest, saying the following: "I'm here to tell you something. I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but Annabelle did not escape. Annabelle's alive. Well, I shouldn't say alive, but Annabelle's here, in all her infamous glory. She never left the museum. Remember, I have high-tech security here. If she left the museum, I would have instantly known if something happened or somebody broke in. I have good alarm systems here and the police are good to respond. They respond within a couple of minutes. But Annabelle's here. She didn't go anywhere. She didn't take a trip. She didn't fly first class and she didn't go out to visit her boyfriend. So here she is. Let me put the rumors to rest." Police Chief John Salvatore detailed why the museum has been closed since 2019, saying the following: "It's not a museum. It's a residential house. The street is a very narrow public roadway, inadequate for parking for any commercial enterprise, and the traffic generated by the home is an inconvenience to neighbours." Tony said that he's tried working things out with the officials, but said that things have become somewhat difficult. He continued with the following: "I've been in compliance with the town's order, and have added more signage in an attempt to quell curious visitations from fans. I've done everything to the best of my ability to stop the intrusion of unwanted guests. I'm not happy with people crawling around the house at all hours either, and the burden placed on neighbours and the local police department, who do a fantastic job of checking on and clearing the property. There's also some stuff that happened between Tony and Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures, with Tony saying that he regretted doing an episode with Zach and his team, with Tony saying the following: "It was all an act for the camera. He was saying, I want to hug her. I feel sorry for her. I feel a connection to her. But they cut it all out though." Tony did say that Zach could have experienced something, saying the following: "The problem is it doesn't have to happen right away. The devil doesn't have to do what you want it to do. It may happen a year from now and you won't attribute it to the doll. They're sly, they're cunning, and they hate you." Zach hit back these comments though, saying the following: I'm fed up with the nasty things this man is saying about myself, my entire crew and our show. If his claims of Annabelle being purely evil and demonic, and had the power to cause a guy's fatal motorcycle accident just for talking to her from outside her protective case, then why would he even take her out of a protective sealed case that Ed and Lorraine Warren put a sign on that reads warning positively do not open, then cram her into a small plastic briefcase and use other mitts to carry her around my museum, putting her in a high chair and letting us investigate her? I'll wait for a large amount of money he was quick to collect after he stormed off set. Wonder how Ed and Lorraine Warren would feel that you took Annabelle out of her case they never said to do for a big check. Stop being a hypocrite. This isn't some joke though. Those who work with and around Annabelle take the haunting seriously. For example, back in 2017, workers poured holy water on themselves after moving Annabelle. This was done to ensure that nothing bad would happen to them for the rest of the day. In fact, Lorraine Warren, who unfortunately passed away, is noted as saying the following: "We have a priest come in and bless the museum, including Annabelle. These are prayers that bind evil, much like an electric fence for a dog." Almost everyone used to own a Raggedy Ann doll back in its heyday. It was one of the most popular toys. Some of these dolls can even go for as much as almost $1,000, and it appears that several different companies sold several different variations of these incredibly popular designs. In the case of the two paranormal researchers and self-proclaimed experts, the Raggedy Ann doll held a very special place for them, and it was locked in a display case fitted and reinforced with a strong encasing metal. This was due to the fact that their Raggedy Ann doll was recovered in a haunting case, of which they investigated many years ago. The doll was named Annabelle, and displayed impossible characteristics that led to its previous owners to suspect that it was cursed. It had the ability to move on its own, tap against objects, write terrifying messages, and supposedly speak out at random times. The real Annabelle doll was given to a young girl named Donna. She was a student who was training as a nurse at the time the doll was given to her. What's interesting about this story is that Annabelle was found in a second-hand store. The doll very quickly started showing signs of a paranormal nature. It started off with small things such as movements in the night. However, this was brushed aside, as the owner said it was likely the wind. But this was not the case. The doll had a life of its own and was not afraid to show it. The longer Donna had the doll, the more it started to open up to her, and this is when things started to get strange. Donna had a close friend named Lou, and it said that he was very nervous around the doll, and felt as if it was watching him every time he was near it. Other friends would also speak out how uncomfortable they felt around the doll, saying that they could hear mysterious voices seemingly coming from nowhere, and that on some occasions Annabelle's eyes would follow you around the room. It's reported that Donna was very fond of the doll, and struggled to believe the stories that her friends were trying to tell her. However, this all stopped when she had an experience of her own. On one occasion she left the doll to go to work. However, when she came home she discovered on multiple occasions that Annabelle had somehow moved. Not only this, but she had moved to a different room and even shut the doors in the process. Donna couldn't understand how a tiny doll was able to do this, but things would only get worse from this point on. Her friends then started to find notes throughout her apartment, one of which read, "Help me." On another occasion, Lou was left alone in the apartment. Everything was fine until he heard strange sounds coming from Donna's room. Thinking she got home early, he opened the door. However, instead of finding Donna, he found Annabelle, and she was sat on the bed looking at the door. Shortly afterwards, the Warrens were called in and they were sure that Annabelle was possessed. they both decided that it would be best if they took it back with them. While driving back to their home, it's reported that Annabelle caused a crash, and the Warrens are sure that whoever is possessing the doll caused this on purpose. Even after getting the doll home, she continued to show signs of being possessed. She'd levitate above Ed's desk and cause bad chest pains to whoever was close by. The doll is considered to be evil and is now locked in a glass case. This doll would later go on to inspire the Annabelle movie franchise and is often at the centre of strange paranormal investigations. As of today, she is considered to be one of the most haunted dolls in the world. Paranormal researchers have said it's quite possible for spirits to inhabit objects. The paranormal is a subject that interests many of us. So far, though, experts are not convinced that ghosts and other entities are real, and say that most paranormal footage can be explained. However, there are those that have said they have proof, and this is in the form of photographs and objects. Given the fact that no one knows the true nature of how a curse can occur, it's been a tale often fraught with mystery as much as horror. Though the ways an individual can be cursed can vary depending on culture, one thought that's always been the same is the ownership of an object, and what that does to its owner. Often referenced throughout history of cursed objects of whom have brought nothing but horror to its new home, there seems to be a retelling of these same themes to this day in modern tales of cursed objects. These stories tend to find themselves in the ownerships of families filled with misfortune. Researchers go on to say that once a spirit is bonded with an object, it can be tough to break that bond, and this only causes trouble for the new owners, as they have to deal with the entity that's attached to this object. This means that the majority of these haunted objects get sold on, or sold to museums that can house them in the right way. So what do you make of the Annabelle doll? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comments section below. It'd help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.